Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on combating cyber threats, particularly with the alarming spike during the current coronavirus crisis. We've got an hour session with the opportunity for questions at the end. If you do have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the Q&A box and we'll get to as many of them as we can at the end of the session. Obviously, due to the current restrictions, we're presenting from the comfort of our own homes today, so we're hoping that the technology won't fail us and we'll hold out. But obviously, if we do have any technical glitches, then please bear with us. We'll also share the full presentation after the session, so you'll get the opportunity to have everything in full should you wish to watch it again. So I'd like to introduce Chris White, who's the Cybersecurity Advisor from the Southeast Regional Organised Crime Unit. So over to you, Chris.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Chris White from the Police Cybersecurity Advisor Division of the Southeast Regional Organised Crime Unit. It's a bit of a mouthful, but we work all across the country, so I'm 1/9 of what's available out there. So if you're up north, certainly you can just Google NCSC space ROCU and you can get in contact with your local cybersecurity advisors. But there's quite a few of us across the country, and we're here to help organisations or individuals when you get in a spot of bother with computers. So as we progress through the slides.
Fraud and cybercrime account for nearly half of all crimes in the UK, and the cost to businesses totals billions of pounds. The effects of fraud or a cyber attack can be devastating. Action Fraud is here to help you if your business is a victim of these crimes. We have a range of reporting tools designed to assist businesses and organisations of all sizes. The internet-based tool is our most simple offering and is available for all businesses and organisations. It's easy to use and focuses on the most commonly reported types of fraud suffered by businesses. The Expert tool is an enhanced service for businesses with regular reporting needs. It also supports the bulk reporting of crime, allowing you to upload an Excel file containing up to 1,000 reports. For access to the Expert tool, you'll need to register at actionfraud.police.uk/register. By reporting incidents to Action Fraud, you'll be alerting law enforcement, ensuring that where possible, we can triage a cyber attack, pass crimes on for investigation, or ultimately, remove the means by which criminals operate. Your reports can also prevent other businesses and consumers from becoming victims. The information you provide helps us identify new crime trends, detect patterns, and disrupt the operations of fraudsters. Best of all, it can help victims of fraud and cybercrime. Reports give us the information we need to prevent further crime by removing the means fraudsters use. We can liaise with a bank to close an account or work with other businesses to remove the websites or phone lines used to commit crime. So how do you report? Face-to-face fraud that involves a local suspect can be reported to your police force by calling 101. For all other fraud and cybercrime, go to actionfraud.police.uk to report online, or alternatively, call 0300 123 2040. You'll be able to track the status of your report via the Action Fraud website, and we'll automatically send you updates on the outcome. If you experience a live cyber attack, such as ransomware, denial of service, or a data breach, you can report 24 hours a day by phone. This will help us reduce the damage caused to your business and could help detectives who may investigate your crime. If you want to know more about how to prevent cybercrime for your business from the National Cybersecurity Centre, visit ncsc.gov.uk. Advice on how to report fraud and how to raise fraud awareness can be found on the Action Fraud website, Twitter and Facebook.
So who are we? If you look at the map top left, we've got the geographical boundaries of all the counties in the UK, and it mirrors it with the police forces. There's 43 police forces all across the UK. And then we've got the regional cybercrime units on the right-hand side, of which there's 10. Effectively, we specialise in looking after the cyber-dependent crimes, which is the hacking, encryption. So rather than the cyber-enabled, which you could relate to fraud, where you use a computer to help you commit a fraud, it's all about volume and scale. You can just use a computer, which will enable you to reach far more victims. So we look at the cyber-dependent crimes, and I personally look after Hampshire Police, Sussex Police, Surrey Police, and Thames Valley Police. And I work in conjunction with the National Cybersecurity Centre and the National Crime Agency. We do unfortunately see a few common themes when it comes to cybercrime. A lot of people still don't use strong enough passwords. And when I talk about passwords, in your own head, if you count how many characters long your password is, you should be working in excess of at least 13 characters now. And we'll show you how to create a good password later on in this slide pack. But certainly passwords need to be longer to make them stronger. 2FA, a lot of people are not aware of 2FA and the value that it could bring. So two-factor authentication, or it might be known as MFA, multi-factor authentication. It's another way of when you log into a website, you use your username, email account and password. You then can either choose to use something called Google Authenticator, or you can have a 6-digit passcode sent to you as a text message, or you get a passcode sent to you in an email. It's something in addition to your user account and password, which is sent through a different form to authenticate you. If 2FA is turned on, certainly most people can't bear to be without their mobile phones these days. So the likelihood is if someone's stolen your phone, it's likely to be reported as stolen and turned off. So if you're in possession of your own phone and you enter that code essentially as a text message, the likelihood is that transaction is all authenticated. Vulnerability to phishing. Again, we will talk about phishing as we progress through, but phishing is the payload. It's the way the cyber criminals get the information to you. They will bombard you with phishing emails, offering you things that are too good to be true, things that are out of the blue, things that unfortunately you might be expecting, and things that might hook you or catch you into clicking here and just venturing down that line. We'll talk about phishing emails, but it is a most successful method of cyber attacks completing their objectives, and that could be either getting data off your computer, damaging your data, deleting your data, or basically getting hold of your computer. We can deal with quite a few of these issues that I've spoke about just through training or awareness. And as long as you know about stuff, you make your own decision on what's going to work for you, what's valuable to you. But if you haven't heard of it or it's something new, then that's a training issue. Some people, unfortunately, do get a bit complacent on computers because we're process driven and we do operate the same repeated tasks, and then sometimes we get a bit complacent with it. So we need to be on guard, really. The criminals only need to be lucky once to get in. We've got to remain lucky all the time, haven't we, to keep them out. So looking at the stats, unfortunately, there's always stats for everything. Sorry about this. But if you look at companies, it's about 32% of all the companies in the UK have had some type of cyber breach or attack in the last 12 months. 48% of those that have had one breach this month. Again, when we look at the average time to recover, so you have your cyber incident, you've lost your computers, it takes you about 23 days to get back to business normality, business continuity. And for SMEs, businesses, roughly the annual cost for cyber attacks is just over £4,000. And scarily, when you look at the figures, that if you have a cyber attack in your organisation or business, it's about 50-50 chance at the moment that 1 in 2 businesses will go bankrupt within 6 months of a cyber attack. Yet when you look at the stats, only 30 have actually got a cybersecurity policy or cyber training. So I know we're all good at when the fire alarm goes off, we all know what to do instantly because we were born and bred with that right the way from back in primary school when you practiced fire alarm drills. Again, when you talk about medical stuff, if you need to do CPR, the ABCs of CPR, we all know how to do CPR when someone needs it. Yet at the moment, one of the biggest threats we're seeing is cybersecurity. Do you know what to do in your own business if you have a cyber incident right now? Do you know how to refer to a cybersecurity policy? So we know this figure a couple of years ago was a little bit lower, so it is on the ups. 29% of staff are now getting cybersecurity training, and certainly 2 years ago that was only 20%, so it is starting to be recognised. And despite, like I said earlier, that 72% of all attacks start with a phishing email. So when we look at the crime reports that are coming in across the UK at the moment, 1 in every 11 recorded crimes is actually a cybercrime, which equates to about 23,000 phishing reports a month. We're focusing on the unfortunate coronavirus incident that's running around the world as we speak. As of Monday, we have seen over the last month about a 400% increase in phishing emails since March 2020. So that's not an increase in online fraud, it's just an increase in corona-related phishing scams or corona-related scams. So fraud has stayed at the same levels, but the criminals are using the hook of the coronavirus to either send you phishing, so that's text messages or emails, with some sort of link, whether it's trying to sell you something or get an update on the latest information snapshots. It's corona related. So again, you can see the figures there. Unfortunately, just over £2.9 million has been lost by 1,425 victims to corona-related phishing scams, and it is currently equating to about 3% of all the frauds being reported. So in relation to how you can keep yourself safe and others as well, because what I'm telling you now, yes, love you to act on it, but also if you see things that is new to you, do share it with your friends and family. So we ultimately want to keep the 4 headlines clear: ransomware, phishing, home working, and wider online fraud. So if you have a look at that website address down the bottom there, soroku.police.uk/COVID-19, we're going to cover a few of those things now, but everything I talk about now is available on the website for you all to access at your leisure later on. So have a look at that website, soroku.police.uk/COVID-19, and the sections on there that we are keen for you to upskill in at the moment is ransomware and how to prevent it. There's some information there on how you are working from home and the practices that you need to take from the office into your house. Some latest examples of the phishing emails and the phishing text messages and the scams, and the wider online fraud, which is the corona-related scams. So again, when you look at this graphic, you certainly can see, we always think, oh, let's just blame hackers for everything, but they're down the bottom here, aren't they? Or close to the bottom. Certainly when you go through the different style of threat vectors, that phishing emails is still up the top. We've got a couple of videos, but Virgin Richard Branson's done quite a good video, which we'll play to you now.
Well, hello, I'm Richard Branson. No, I'm Richard Branson. You know me, I'm a nice guy, and that's why I like to send direct messages to people I don't know. Scammers like him are contacting people who post on our social feeds. Even if it's a verified account with a blue tick, know that I never direct message anyone, nor does any of my team. Who needs blue ticks? There's nothing risky about me. These cryptocurrencies are a safe bet. You should invest. I never endorse any get-rich-quick schemes. This is a surefire way to lose your investment. Don't want to invest? Well, get free stuff instead. If you get an invitation like this, go right ahead and click the link. It's a really good deal. It's a really good example of phishing. Don't take the bait. My team may invite you to take part in our special recruitment program. Just give them all your personal details. Don't worry, you can trust them completely. This, of course, is yet another scam. Don't ever give your personal details to anyone. At Virgin Group, we're working hard to unmask scammers. Only trust what we post on our official channels and social media accounts. Help us stop scammers and report anything you think is suspicious here. If you think it's a con, send it on.
So the advice there applies to quite a lot of outlets, to be honest. there was some key things in there. He said about a blue tick on social media. Certainly on Facebook, we're seeing a lot of scams at the moment, whereby there's products or services being sold. Have a look at when that web page or the Facebook page was actually created, and have a look for the blue tick. And if it is, for instance, Virgin without a blue tick, then that's non-genuine. Normally you'll see that the page was created within the last couple of days, but reposted, shared thousands of times, where everyone thinks, brilliant, great, good deal, share it on to the friends. But just do some due diligence and check. See how long the page has been up and running, see whether it's got the blue tick, and before you act and give away any information. So phishing emails, we're still seeing there's roughly about 156 million phishing emails going around the world every day. Yes, there's a lot of technical equipment out there that's blocking, blacklisting, just preventing known scam, spam emails getting through to your inbox, but it still means that 16 million of those emails are getting into people's inboxes around the world, and 8 million people still opening up the phishing emails and clicking on links. So why is that happening? Well, when we look at some of the coronavirus scams that are going around here, they're just hooking you on really interesting things. So there's the example on the left is an email that came in, and the example on the right is text messages that came in. So they're designing them to replicate, emulate certain approved brands, government brands. They're effectively trying to get your interest and getting you to donate stuff. So just do some due diligence on these emails. When we look at emails, up the top, just see the time date stamp. Does the time date stamp match what it's trying to achieve? So this one basically is someone's been around your house, tried to deliver an email, tried to deliver parcel, and you weren't in. So effectively, you get an email follow-up to arrange a redelivery or arrange it to go to your neighbours. So dear customer, again, that's vague. If they've been around your house, it should be something very similar, like dear Chris. Up the top, NTX research, well, they're saying in this email it's from UPS. Why is it not from customer services at ups.com? Reason being, you can change most email headers to say what they want. So you've got to get your mouse hover over the email header and see the data behind. So we've done that in this email. Originally, it would have said customer services at ups.com, but if you hover your mouse over it, you'll see that the header will change and you can see the data behind it. So just get into habit. On desktop machines, hover your mouse. On a smartphone, you can actually press the address and it will tell you the data behind it. A new screen will come up and it will show you. So anything that says dear customer, again, it's too vague, it should be personalized. And then the attachment there, .zip, tend not to open .zips because they could contain dangerous coding or software. .exes or .rars, just be aware of any attachments. Check with the sender before you open any attachments, because once the attachment is in and on your machine, potentially it could be doing stuff that you just don't know about at all. So another example of a phishing email. This one is from Microsoft, or pretend to be Microsoft. You can see at the top there, account-security-no reply at account protection dot. That does actually say RN, so rmicrosoft.com, but push the R and the N together, it looks like an M. So again, hover your mouse over it and you should see that clearer, but certainly they would like you to click on the review recent activity, which would take you through to a fake login screen. You'd enter your user account and your password. They'd then grab the password and they'd log in on your behalf at a later stage. So be aware of that. So once the phishing email's in and the attachment could be opened, the machine, the computer, will probably start to be downloading some sort of horrible software known as ransomware. Effectively, there's 3 different strains that we've seen of successful ransomware over the last month, and we'll see what happens next. So you click on an attachment, the attachment starts downloading into your computer. It may take you to a website like this. So this is recorded in real time. So you can see the mouse is moving down and it's clicking on the obituary column. You can see that the web page hasn't quite loaded yet. It's a little bit slow. Could be slow broadband. That's what you might be thinking. The circle there is turning around. So it could be your slow computer. At the top, you see the brackets not responding. So you might think, oh, the website's just offline. So the alarm now is down the bottom. Turn on Windows Security Center services, come on. So someone's just turned off the Windows security. Then that would be a bit worrying for me. So bear in mind, this is recorded in real time. You've hit the website, you think you're downloading something genuine, the ransomware is now kicked in. So you can see how quick that was. I think that was roughly about 20-25 seconds. All of the files on your computer are now lost to ransomware. You can see that it's just a bunch of gobbledygook code. All of the files are named under the same file, and you just can't access any of your stuff. The one file which you'll see that's available will be the instructions on how to get your stuff back, which will normally be contact an email address and make some type of payment to get your data back. So if this happens to you, there are some solutions here. If you've already got an offsite backup, cloud backup, you basically will have to wipe your computer and start again. If you don't have a backup, then you're on a sticky wicket. You may have to consider whether or not you're going to pay the ransom to get your data back if you've got no opportunity. Certainly, UK government, we recommend that obviously you don't pay any ransomware. There is a website out there called No More Ransom, which I would encourage you to go and check, because when you pay a ransom, you get given a key. You type the electronic key into the computer, and effectively it should unlock all your files. On the website, thenomallransom.org, there are loads of keys on there from people that unfortunately have decided to pay the ransomware, and then the keys get sent to law enforcement and we upload them onto that website, and then once they're on the website, anyone can download them if they are in those dire straits times and need it.
We are talking to people about the cybersecurity breach at Equifax, and in light of that, we're asking people how secure their internet passwords are. What do you use for an internet password?
You know, I usually stick to my last name. That's probably not the best thing to do, but I usually stick to my last name, a few digits, maybe like a hashtag or something, or...
How do you spell your last name?
Walker.
Walker?
Yeah.
W-A-L-K-E-R?
Yeah.
And then just a few numbers?
Yeah, I probably should have told you that.
And then a hashtag.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The numbers, like, what do you use, like your birthday or something, your area code?
Yeah, usually like my birthday.
How old are you?
21.
21? What day you born?
November. No, the day, sorry, the 29th.
29th of November?
Yeah.
So Walker, 11/29/95.
Woo! I probably shouldn't say that, but...
That's okay.
Yeah.
How strong is your internet password?
Strong.
What sort of things do you use?
Capital letters, lowercase letters, numbers, characters, everything.
What's a current password you're using?
I don't really want to tell the current password that I'm using, to be honest.
You think I'm a hacker?
Not necessarily. Well, I mean, I guess, you know, like 63XJ9 hat symbol, @ symbol, basically all characters, pretty random assortment, and I just try to memorize.
You use that one?
Yes.
Thank you. What is your internet password that you use for your email?
In and out 2017.
That was easy.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
My internet password is capital W @TER capital B 0 NG waterbong.
Yeah, we probably could have guessed that one.
My internet password is okay.
Yeah.
Mila for what's MILR64.
Well, that's nice. Now Americans can hack into a Russian website. No, let me.
So interesting video there on passwords and security and safety. Let's have a look at the top then. Top 20 passwords of 2019. I do hope none of yours are up there, but you can see how poor people still decide to choose their passwords. So running across, let's have a look at QWERTY 987123. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 characters long. That is what we are recommending at the moment, for you to have at least 13 characters, 3 random words in your head. If you can add complexity to it, that'd be even better. So effectively, think of your favorite song. Think of the first line of your favorite song. String all those words together and make that your passphrase. So try and move away from calling it a password and using passphrase. You keep your passphrase for as long as possible now. There's no change in your passphrase every 60 or 90 days because you're just going to change it for a another password which might be just equally as less secure. So choose a very long passphrase and keep it as long as possible. The only two reasons where you change your passphrase is one, when you know it's been compromised, or two, when the company or the organization you're logging into tells you it's been compromised. So out of interest, that QWERTY one, how long do you think it's going to take to crack that one? Because that is pretty easy. If you look at that, that's the top two lines of the keyboard. Well, that could be hacked in less than 15 seconds. Coffee, tiny fish, which are three easy words. So again, try to make it a little bit more complex. 6 hours is the time it takes to try and hack that on modern day computers. And coffee, tiny fish, #9, that takes just over 6 years to hack that one. So have a look at your passwords. Do please increase the length of them. And the golden rule is have one password for your email account, and then you can use different passwords for other accounts. You do need to keep that sterile corridor between your email account and the other accounts you log into, purely because if an organization gets hacked and you use the same password across all your accounts, you can go into the email account and then you just keep pressing the reset my password by email, and you're in control of the email account, so you get all the reset links come through. And it takes, well, it could take about 15 minutes to take someone's life over if you're using the correct search engines to reset all their passwords. So passwords is pretty important these days. Keep an eye on them. Secure device. So have a look at this screen. Those of you who want to take a picture of it or screenshot, but I'm pretty sure that this recording is going to be available afterwards. That's what we're really calling is a secure device. So again, operating systems, yes, if you could stay on the latest operating system as possible, but I know sometimes it does cost a bit of money to keep on the latest operating system, but just ensure that your operating systems are auto updating all the time, and that includes all the apps as well. So if you ever get one of those red circles turn up on your apps, just make sure you're setting the auto update. Browsers, they need updating separately as well. So if it's Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, just ensure that they're updating as well. When we talk about antivirus, anti-spyware, and a firewall, you need one of those each, and you need them to be auto-updated and fully operational as well. Where you can, turn on two-factor authentication. So banks, normally it's a must with them now that you must turn them on, but if you've got email accounts, Gmail, certainly there is options for having 2FA turned on there. If you're going to go out and come off of 3G, 4G or 5G, and you're going to go and jump onto public Wi-Fi, definitely be using a virtual private network, a VPN. Make sure you have a VPN on. It encrypts your traffic that you are sent and received. If you do have the ability to stay on VPN, if you do have the ability to stay on your mobile phone signal, do stay on it, because that's far more encrypted than public Wi-Fi. But I do appreciate that sometimes you're not in a good signal strength there, or you might run out of data that month. If you've got the opportunity to utilize a password manager either on the device that you've got, so some of the smartphones now have all got password vaults, make that generate a particularly long password. And where you can, if you're on a desktop machine at home and you're the single user of that desktop machine, you can start to use a browser to save the passwords for you. Again, once you're out and about on smart devices, turn the screen lock on. So whether or not you need to put your fingerprint, a pattern, your face, or a PIN code, you've got to have the screen lock on. So when the device auto locks, it encrypts as well. If the screen lock is not on, your device is not encrypted. Back up your data on a phone. Certainly you can use iCloud, or there's other options out there, but you must be backing up your data in this day and age. For when something dreadful happens, you just revert to your most recent backup. National Cybersecurity Centre.gov.uk has an awful lot of helpful material out there which is available for you to review. So if you own your own businesses or organisations, so if you're in a primary or secondary school, certainly I'd be looking at everybody working to the Small Business Guide number 7 there. The senior leadership team, they need to have a read of the board toolkit. Certainly to get involved in cyber awareness training, down the bottom left, number 5, there's some tips there for all staff. And those of you involved in IT, number 2 there, you can get the weekly threat report and alerts and advisories from the National Cybersecurity Centre. Again, for those of you that are involved in IT, have a look at this screen. So there's different services on there that are available. You can see what is available and who can get access to it. My contact details are going to be on the last page as well. So if you want to run through some of this with me afterwards, feel free. but these are some of the different services, technical things, cyber resilience training, which is exercise in a box where you can see how mature your organization is in response to a cyber incident, how quickly you can get back up and running. And again, Internet of Things, we're seeing these targeted. So if you've got your classic printer scanner copier there, if it's still on the manufacturer's default password and you've plugged it into the internet because it likes to send you emails when you scan documents in, you scan it back in as a PDF, certainly you just need to make sure that, I know we like plugging all this stuff in, and that's in the home as well, where we've got all the smart TVs and smart speakers. We've got to make sure that we take all this stuff off of its manufacturer's password, its default password. Because like you see there with Xerox, you can Google the standard default manufacturer's password for a Xerox printer scanner copier, and you'll probably find the user account of Xerox and the password Xerox. If that's plugged into the internet, I can use probably something like Showdown, which is a website, and it will tell me what's plugged in. And then if it's not set up securely, I can just log into that and just make it do a few extra things that you probably wouldn't want it to do. So any devices that you want to plug in, change the default password, make sure you click again that it's auto updating all the latest patches and software. And if you can, turn on the two-factor authentication. There's a blog down there called Fixing All Things, which will help you out on that one as well. For those of you at home as well, that you've got your own social media accounts or phones, TVs, games consoles, laptops, tablets, gadgets, Fitbits, you name it, anything that connects to the internet, let's make sure this stuff is all turned on securely and with privacy in mind. Internetmatters.org is a good place to start. So if there's a lot of Xboxes and PlayStations and social media accounts that are all being used a lot at the moment, just spin through some of the device and a checklist there to make sure that you've got them set up correctly and securely. And data breach time. So GDPR came live, didn't it, back in May 2018, which enabled a lot of companies to formally report data breaches to the ICO. There was a website that probably sprung to life around that time as well called haveibeenpawned.com. So it's a search engine of the dark web. If you go to that website, type in your email address and it will search that email address against all known data breaches. It will come back with a list, unfortunately. The red light will indicate that you're involved in a data breach, and the green light will mean you haven't been involved in one yet, because I think, unfortunately, and we're living in that world now where you're likely to be involved in a data breach at some time. Certainly, click the Notify Me button, and then that will get you registered with that website. And all it would do is when it sees your email address in a future data breach, it will just send you an email telling you that you're involved in the data breach, and it will tell you exactly what you are involved in. So whether it's your name, address, phone number, bank account, surfing history or habits, it will indicate what the data breach entails. Now, if any of those data breaches involve password compromise, remember when I said earlier about you only change your password, two reasons. One, if you've been notified, or one, if the company notifies you. But this is the bit where you will change your passwords. If you get notified on, I don't know, the 1st of January 2020 that there's a data breach, if you changed your password after that data breach, then you're automatically safe. But if you haven't changed your password since that data breach, then this is the point when you need to change your password. Because if you know where to look, you can find the password and log into that email account. Again, a snapshot, heavy slide, but certainly depending on what you're interested in, have a look at that. So if you've got an interest in malware, ransomware, or patching phishing, or you have responsibilities for supply chain, the National Cybersecurity Centre has some good guidance sheets there, which they're all listed there to save you searching, but have a look through those depending on what your interests are. Certainly over the last 2 weeks, the National Crime Agency has been working with the National Cybersecurity Challenge UK organisation, and because we know there's a lot of young people that are currently at home, maybe not in school at the moment, Cyberland under cybergamesuk.com has been created to take the talent of the young people that are like exploring computers and just encouraging them to use computers positively and ethically. So if you've got any youngsters around that like solving online quizzes or puzzles, certainly have a look at Cyberland, and there's some good games there for them to progress through. We've got a case study here as well. So just an example of when sometimes things go wrong. So college phishing email came in. Unfortunately, someone clicked on the link, the software downloaded, and they had a full infection of ransomware. All of their data was encrypted, so they couldn't access anything. So when you look at your average business, the payroll the subcontractors, the payment database, the next of kin details, allergies, medical information, the homework, the coursework, the student work, all of this was encrypted. And then when you looked at the third-party systems that the computers were attached to, that included the fire alarm, the intruder alarm, the door entry control, the CCTV, the VoIP phone system, everything was turned off. So you couldn't print, you couldn't project. You literally, when you look at what you rely on computers to do in the modern day life, without them, sometimes we struggle and life does get a little bit difficult. So in this scenario, you would have a look at your backups, and if you've got full infection on your current systems, you turn all your systems off, find your last backup, wipe your systems, add the backup on. But on this occasion, the on-site backups were also infected. What happens here? Well, decision is made by the senior leadership team. Do we pay the ransom, get our stuff back, or do we try and stay offline and rebuild things? And the decision made on this one was we're going to pay the ransom off. So I know on this occasion it was roughly around £50,000 to pay the ransom, and then it was about another £75,000 for a third-party IT company to come in and actually sort out all the computer systems, get them back up online. So it cost them roughly about £125,000. It took them 3 months to achieve to get them back up online. So unfortunately, cyber incidents, when it does go wrong, it does cause chaos, and it's just not that day. It takes a while to get computers back up online. So that's me done today. My details up there. Hopefully any questions, we've got the Q&A available. I see some questions coming in already, but any of the stuff I've talked about is on that soroku.police.uk. And if any of you are available to go on to that smart survey scan there, scan that, and we can get some feedback on this, and you can find some more information about what we spoke about. But back to the office.
Thank you very much, Chris. That's a great overview of the threat landscape that's currently seen in the midst of these unprecedented times. It's very much appreciated, and I think it's something that every one of us can certainly see a level of relevance on the reliance that we have now on all the different data and devices that we run. So I think what's clear is we can all try to put in place as many lines of defense as possible. But fundamentally, our data protection strategy, including backups and accelerated restoration, is often seen as very much the last defense. So I just want to really provide a bit of a Redstor overview against some of this threat landscape, if I may. So our take on the current landscape is as follows. The country has responded at a high pace to the need to connect remote workers. However, this has led to challenges associated with the way organizations operate on a daily basis regarding the management and protection of their most valuable asset, their data. During these times of restricted access to organizational sites to resolve issues with on-prem equipment or to change tapes, the value of a cloud-first approach has never been so tangible. I'll come on to Chris's point of that further education case study in a little while. Furthermore, we've seen a massive adoption increase of Office 365. So there's huge amounts of data now going to Office 365. Your very latest iterations of large-scale volumes of data are now likely to be distributed between cloud applications like Office 365 and laptops that are recently deployed to enable home working. Microsoft themselves are, of course, responsible for the availability of the platforms they run, but they do indicate that they're not responsible for the protection and availability of the user data. Policies are always evolving and tend to be very complicated, as Chris has highlighted. The threat landscape is continuously evolving. If you aren't constantly monitoring your organization's data and investing time to understand the complex landscape, it's really easy for things like critical data to fall through the cracks. As you can see on this slide, there is a section from Microsoft's own service agreement that states that Microsoft themselves recommend that you regularly back up your content and data that you store on the services or store using third-party apps and services. So Office 365 backup and retention policies are all very well, but they cannot take the place of third-party backup solutions. Data is being created and likely being saved locally on laptops, meaning a further exponential increase in the number of data silos that you as an IT function need to now be across and manage and make sure are being protected. Furthermore, in things like lead times, in these current circumstances with lockdown, we've got people being forced to remote work. This is putting large-scale organisations in a completely different position with regards to supply chain. So if you're running out of disk and you're suffering from long lead times, why would you seek to have data that has not been accessed for over 6 months to a year, consuming that valuable disk in your primary infrastructure? And also, you're backing it up when it never changes. So why not optimize your primary environment by leveraging Redstor's archiving functionality? In the unlikely event that anyone does need that old file that never gets accessed, you can still retrieve it by Redstor's unique instant data streaming solution within seconds that I'll come on to shortly. We've heard today that the importance of having a DR plan, there of course is very important, but it's only as valuable if you can demonstrate that you can retrieve the data in a timely manner to get your users and internal customers up and running with the data they need to continue working. You can see in some of these stats just some of the percentages of those organisations that do or don't have a DR plan and some of the risks that they face even if they do. And also down below, the actual cost of some of the ransomware implications. So, of course, from our point of view, every hour that it takes to recover or restore data costs your business financially and reputationally. Instant data, again, can provide you with instant access to critical files and data to get your organisation and users up and running with minimal delay, and is certainly a great way to avoid the kind of costs outlined in this slide, especially when you're considering now downtime for certain large organisations could be anything up to $100,000 on average. The prevalence of ransomware and other cyber attacks has been well documented today by Chris, but also, more importantly, been frequently reported now across both the private and the private commercial sector and also the public sector. In February of this year, the Cabinet Office sent a letter from the Government Chief Security Officer to all local authority chief executives. They stated that the mitigation to reduce the risk of successful ransomware attacks includes security measures which can prevent an attacker gaining access to the network. But along with these defences, having the ability to recover from backups is vital. They actually stipulated in that letter that you should ask your IT team or your service provider to confirm the following. They are backing up the right data. So Search and Insight, our answer to this is Search and Insight. That enables a customer to determine how much data they have, where it's located, and most importantly, enables users to make objective decisions on what is critical and therefore essential to be backed up, but also will provide information on the last time that data was accessed, enabling customers to set in place rules that stipulate that should a file or data that has not been accessed in the last 12 months, for example, it can easily be moved to an archive location within Redstor's cloud. That frees up the capacity in the customer's primary infrastructure, therefore delaying any decisions around costly CapEx purchases, and furthermore means that backups are taken only for recent and critical data. It also overcomes the previous slides mentioned around issues with lead times. The second point that the Cabinet Office stipulate is that the backups are held offline. Redstor can back up to any cloud, including Azure, AWS, or whether it's the customer's own Azure instance, or that it's one of our partners or Redstor's own Azure instance. But by default, we utilize our own dual UK data centers, meaning we hold 2 copies of your data as standard. And as mentioned, we're a cloud-first organization with no reliance upon local hardware to store or access your backups. The third item that they stipulate is you have to be able to prove the ability to recover data and services from your backups. So placing your data in the cloud requires an accelerated method of restoration, as typically customers deploy services to expedite the restoration. Redstor's unique instant data solution enables customers to prioritize files they need to ensure that they can get up and running instantly. A customer can either select a file they require from a backup, or they can kickstart a full backup restoration and prioritize the files they need to get working again. Instant data is effectively a data streaming service similar to that of Netflix that we all see and love and use at home, and the way that you can watch an episode whilst downloading a whole box set. It's an ideal way to enable an IT team or an individual to demonstrate that they can indeed retrieve those files at any time without limitations often associated with DR tests that involve physical appliances or external service provider support. Instant data critically also works in the same way for archived data. Therefore, should you choose to archive that data that hasn't been accessed for a period of time, but your users do require access to it, the archived file or data can be instantly returned to the user through the same data streaming or prioritization method. So with all these different considerations and advice, how does Redstor's cloud solution provide you with a solution to protect you from ransomware? Firstly, as a cloud-first organization, we provide you with the required firebreak. This is achieved by removing the reliance on a primary backup target that is on-prem, which is as susceptible to ransomware as the rest of your network, as we saw in Chris's previous further education ransomware case study. End-to-end encryption. If you back up ransomware whilst it is idle and prior to it executing, it becomes inert in the backup, so it cannot propagate in the Redstor data centers. Furthermore, flexible retention points that enables the rollback to the point in time prior to when the infection occurred, or if able to isolate the source of ransomware, you can recover everything apart from that data set, enabling you to recover data that you know to be safe after the threat has hit. If customers are impacted, instant data allows you to stream data on demand. Several customers that we have been able to build a completely fresh environment and restore from the safe data prioritizing the data you require, meaning that from your perspective, you can get up and running as quickly as possible, avoiding further risks of infection and ransomware impact. And of course, we mentioned GDPR in Chris's slides. How does one demonstrate that our data management and protection strategies actually comply with GDPR? Article 32, for example, is a specific item that we draw upon in a lot of cases. And actually, there are a lot of similarities to the requirements to our service should you release it almost as a set of tender questions. For example, Article 32 stipulates that the controller and the processor shall implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to ensure a level of security appropriate to the risk, including where appropriate, the encryption of personal data. Redstor provide this as a standard. The ability to ensure the ongoing confidentiality, integrity, availability and resilience of processing systems and services. Again, that's achieved through dual copies and instant data. The ability to restore the availability and access to personal data in a timely manner in the event of physical or technical incident. Again, immediate access via instant data seems very timely to me. A process for regularly testing, assessing and evaluating the effectiveness of technical and organizational measures for ensuring security of the processing, while a combination of instant data and search and insight as a validation point is certainly our answer to that one. If you had a room full of IT professionals and security compliance officers, how many would choose not to have instant access to their data, or the ability to undertake immediate subject access requests and meet the obligations of the right to be forgotten of your personal customers? Instant data is a very easy way to test and prove that data is indeed recoverable. So why Redstor? As you can see from this slide, we can back up the various applications shown on the left-hand side to the destinations that are shown on the right-hand side of the slide, with the capability to provide a comprehensive all-in-one solution for backup and recovery, DR, archiving, and also allows for extensive search and insight to enable informed and objective decision-making around your data management and protection, all through a single management console that you can see in the middle. In summary, when considering the right backup solution for your needs, we strongly recommend that you follow the guidelines that Chris has set out today, but also those that are outlined by the Cabinet Office, as I indicated earlier. Also take steps to mitigate the risk of ransomware by creating that all-important firebreak, by backing up to the cloud, removing the reliance on primary backup target that is on-prem, which is as susceptible to ransomware as the rest of your network. Try to look at a solution that enables you to demonstrate compliance with GDPR as just outlined, including the ability to swiftly satisfy subject access requests and the right to be forgotten, a solution that enables cloud to cloud and to be able to back up Office 365 and G Suite based upon the rapid increase in adoption and the risk that your most recent versions of your data are now largely unprotected in the cloud. A solution that provides options to optimize and extend the life cycle of your on-prem primary infrastructure by leveraging archiving, and a solution that is charged simply and enables cost predictability. Redstor's pence per gig means that you're charged based upon data selected, not what is stored. All of the functionality discussed today is included in the simple pence per gig selected price. And finally, and arguably the most importantly, that we can deliver is that you can deliver your critical data back to your users instantly to enable them to be up and running as quickly as possible and prove that they have the ability to recover data and services as advised by the Cabinet Office and Chris in his sessions earlier today. We'll now pause for questions before drawing the session to a close. Amy, do we have any questions?
Yep, apologies, I was on mute. Yes, we have lots of questions, so we will get through as many as we can, and then obviously any others, please feel free to either email Rob or Chris on the email addresses here, and we'll make sure we respond to you. Okay, so first question we've got here is someone saying, we're just in the process of moving some critical data from tape to Redstor Cloud Backup. Is archive included in this, or is it an additional cost?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Yes, all of Redstor services that I've talked through today are all included in a single pence per gig price.
Okay, great. A question for Chris here. So the companies that don't have cybersecurity in place, do they fit a particular profile?
They do if they plug their computers into the internet. So if you aren't patching your computers, you've not correctly configured everything, Internet things, to that same internet broadband connection, then you're going to leave yourself vulnerable. I guess in the olden days, if you had a particular victim or modus operandi that a burglar might focus on, then they would pick on what they know how to complete or commit that crime, because that's the crime they favour. But in relation to this modern day, the moment you plug your computer in, if you haven't set it up correctly, then you're just vulnerable to everyone around the world. So there is no particular profile other than how your systems are set up. And obviously, once your systems are set up correctly, people can research them remotely. And if they find that you are not on the latest version of something, or you haven't done that particular update, the updates will publish what the vulnerabilities are, and then you can be exploited once they establish what software version you're on. So not a real particular profile other than the weaknesses in your own systems if they're incorrectly set up.
Okay, thank you. Another question, do you need third-party antivirus if you have Windows 10?
Again, without knowing the specifics on that system, I wouldn't like to comment on that. But certainly home users, if you've got the Windows operating system software up together in place, fully automatic operating antivirus, then yes, that is suitable. But certainly when you move into a business environment without knowing all the additional stuff connected, it'd be unfair for me to comment in that area.
Okay, this is a question that might be a two-parter for Chris and Rob. Can you recommend any anti-ransomware software suitable and affordable for schools? Do or will Microsoft release anything in their built-in suite?
So, anti-ransomware software, it's more antivirus, anti-malware, and a firewall. It's defense in depth. If you train your staff to recognize when a phishing email comes in, then they're not going to click on it. If you set up your firewalls correctly to block phishing emails, if you've turned off USB so you can't introduce viruses through USB, all of these different things pushed together as a toolkit would prevent ransomware getting on your system. So to say rely on anti-ransomware software, I would rely on us humans having the correct training and talking about it in an environment, giving them the confidence to phone their IT team, and the IT team receptive rather than maybe being a bit abrupt on the phone saying, why did you do this? Why did you do that? If we have a training regime that you walk around your organisation and you test certain things which are under your policy, and when someone passes that test, you give them a free Mars bar or something, or some free fruit to stay healthy, and you reward good behaviour there and then. The culture in that organisation will change, and you'll make it far safer and securer. So to have some anti-ransomware, I think that needs to be a little bit wider than just software. Software is one of the many things. Having a good, trained up, aware human is probably your best solution.
And I'm not going to be able to add to that in any way, shape or form. Thank you, Chris.
No problem. Someone's asked, are schools particularly vulnerable?
Just as vulnerable as anyone else once you're connected to the internet. If I'm sat at home being a hacker, for instance, I don't really know who you are. Once I start exploring that internet feeds, if you're vulnerable, I guess I don't really care who you are. All I know is that if you've got data on your system and I could encrypt it and lock it, I know that there's probably a probability that someone might pay me. So whether or not you're a multi-billion-pound business, or whether or not you're a plumber in a small business that has about 2 or 3 staff, or whether or not you're a charity, I don't care. I'm just going to encrypt you. As ruthless as that sounds, that's how it works.
And I think I'd add to that as well, Chris. And I think one of the challenges that we see in a lot of organisations is actually there is, if I look at the amount of data that a lot of our customers, for example, protect, there is often quite a significant percentage of data that resides on people's whether it be a laptop, whether it's a server. It's very difficult to decide and determine actually what is critical data and therefore should be backed up and what isn't. So therefore, I would ask you, Chris, is there a particular view that organisations should take as to what kind of data they should back up, or should they be backing up all data by way of course?
Well, if anything's core critical, organisational, business critical, then definitely back it up, all your passwords and your Active Directory. But again, I know there's a cost which is applied to all things. So it's review what data you would class as critical. So I guess in a school, yes, obviously the Active Directory, medical stuff, or the allergies for the kids, that's quite urgent, isn't it? And that would take quite a while to compile that again. But again, you could argue that coursework and the staff's payroll and the pension data and the suppliers details, where you need to look at your own organisation's data needs and fit, preferably back it up everything if you could, but you've got to spend wisely in this day and age, haven't you? So it's prioritised, and that's where you have a risk register, look at your risk register, find out what your needs are, have an asset audit so you understand exactly what you've got in your business, and then look at your business continuity plans and your disaster recovery plans. So rather like we do practice fire drills, don't we, every Friday morning at 11 o'clock, and everyone just knows what to do. You need to have your cybersecurity plan in place so everyone knows what to do. If I give you an example, I know an Australian company, or a company around the world that has offices all around the world, if their Australian office has a cyber incident whereby the Australian computers are hit by ransomware, if the London office doesn't act with some safeguarding measures, if the virus is on their internal network, they have roughly about 4.5 minutes before the virus in Australia takes out the London office. So that is the speed of the computers and how quickly some of these malware can spread on internal networks. So you need to have a policy in place. So whether or not it is you put your finger on the power button on the computer and you pull the plugs out the back of the computer, or you turn the routers off, you just need to have that policy in place that all of your staff follow the same policy, rather than when something goes wrong, people sometimes panic and then they do what they feel is best, which might be the opposite to what the company policy is.
Yeah, which certainly resonates with your the problem existing between the chair and the keyboard.
Okay, so we've probably got time for a couple more, and then we'll answer the rest afterwards. So someone has said, in your experience, is the standard corporate Office 365 spam filter enough, or should we be having a third-party product on top of that?
Not knowing the background of that organisation, I would need to explore that one a little bit more, because I don't know the actual needs So that's probably one. If whoever wrote that question down, if you want to get in touch afterwards, more than happy to talk that through.
Great, fab. Someone else has asked, can Redstor help us identify uncorrupted versions in the backup, or is that something we have to do ourselves?
I would defer to some technical colleagues on that, but my understanding is that we have certainly assisted organisations determine what is corrupted and what is not corrupted from our operational team. So my understanding and my belief is yes, that is the case. But if whoever submitted that question would like to get in touch with me afterwards, or if they could submit their name, we'll make sure we get somebody to assist you to make sure that we're not overcommitting ourselves on that basis.
Great, thank you. Okay, one more. So someone has said, in terms of reporting cyber attacks and support from police and action fraud, it's very difficult. We're forced to make decisions quickly, get into the recovery phase as soon as we can. Recently had an attack, but we were well into recovery when we thought to report. Would this be something that we should report and wait for help, or do we report and get on with recovery pending any additional support?
Certainly phone the police straight away. And I get that you're in survival mode, aren't you, if you're running an organisation. But 0300 123 2040, if you're under a live cyber attack, phone it through and you can get immediate help. But I get there might be conflicting issues there with your own internal cybersecurity incident response policy. But the police are available 24/7 for live cyber attacks.
Great. Okay, I think we'll conclude there. As I said, any other questions we will follow up, make sure we get to Chris or Rob afterwards. So thanks very much, everyone.